met him at that point. I think I met many of you when I had the foundation in California. And he came over to our foundation, which was up in Northern California. And we had lunch, and I was just sitting there quietly, and Hart was sitting next to me, and suddenly he asked a question, which was a provocation. If you know Hart well, he knows how to ruffle your feathers, and immediately we got into a debate at lunch. So somehow that built our relationship from then on. But immediately with my friends egging, I decided to sign up for the course. Now, interestingly, I was interested in Jyotish, but before that I was interested in Greek astrology, so I did that for a while. And I think Penny is the reason I'm a Swami today, which I'm not sure you know, but she organized the first Jyotish camp here. And I was in California, and I said, you know, Hart is just 20 minutes away. Why would I go across the country, which is a problem? And the second problem is, why go to an ashram, which is, you know, at that time I had a problem coming to ashrams or talking to swamis like me. So that karma is coming back, you know, now is what I experienced here. But then she organized the course here, and I think you organized for Hart to come here. And that was the only course that ever happened. There was no other course that happened after that. So
no other course that happened here.
Yeah. So obviously Prarabdha had to drag me, because I was not going to come to an ashram if Hart was not coming. So I ended up coming here, and this is how I ended up actually even coming longer and staying here and studying with Dayanandaji. But if that exposure did not happen, if that course did not happen here, I would definitely not be part of this institution or be a Swami today. But the contribution that Hart did was that he had so much knowledge of our scriptures because of his training. What he trained us as students is really understand the principles in a very thorough way, rather than looking at a chart and, you know, going like what Penny just talked about, cataloging. When we look at Jyotishes, many times they love to state the facts. This is there, that is there. Okay, it's great, it's there, but what does it really say? And how do you really point out, you know, what's going on? And you know, the training that Hart gave us was so important in enabling me or anyone, any of the students, and I think many of you have seen that, to see and read a chart in a way that is just powerful. What happened to me when I would look at the chart, the cataloging didn't even exist initially. Of course, it's like the cataloging exists when you're learning how to ride a bicycle with the side wheels. At some point you just drop that away and just look at a chart. So I was able to look at a chart as a picture. And when you look at a chart, immediately the grahas speak to you. And when they speak to you, you're not doing the reading. You're just channeling. And that type of reading could only happen when you understand the principles really deep. And I think Hart's training was significant in enabling me to do that. Now, of course, prior to that, I was quite involved with ACPA. In fact, I don't think many of you know this, or some of you might know. We had the American Council of Vedic Astrology. And Dennis Harness at that time, who was leading that organization at that point, said, hey, we need to get a tax exemption Now, I had gotten tax exemption with many other organizations before, and when I looked at the way ACPA was structured, there was no way it was going to get tax exemption. So I suggested to Dennis Harness, let's create a separate brand new organization called the American College of Vedic Astrology. So we still have the same initials, and the design was that the American College of Vedic Astrology would train students, and ACPA would become the association for astrologers, because they're two different streams. You know? So that was the idea, and he liked the idea very well. So I started working with him to create the American College of Vedic Astrology, and we started building on that. Every month I would fly to Sedona, we would work on the documents, and we submitted the documents, and within 6 months we got the 501c3. I also remember selecting the board members for the College of Vedic Astrology, and that was my journey. But all that time I had exposure to all these great astrologers that would come to ACPA. We had some great conferences in Sedona where I think about 600 people would show up, or 500 people would show up. But that sort of conference type training was not enough to give me the confidence to do Jyotish. It was until I actually made a commitment to study in that systematic way that Hart taught, is when I began to really understand how Jyotisha works to that level. So that systematic way of learning is the way that I prefer, maybe because I have an engineering mind, but the systematic way of studying was incredibly critical for me to really get into Jyotisha. And I was so passionate about Jyotish. I never wanted to do anything else after I wanted. And you know, it's so vast. Jyotisha is vast. More, in fact, it's so complicated than even what I call the design. Like my background was in electronic engineering, so you can imagine how much knowledge is involved in putting all these resistors in an inch sort of size. I mean, all of our devices have millions and millions of resistors. So you can imagine the logic behind it. So as an engineer, when I came to Jyotisha, I was like, wow, this is so incredibly complex that there's no way that we can really understand all of the principles in one lifetime. I remember Hart saying that to be a really good Jyotisha, you need 140 years just to understand all of the principles. How many years can we live? And he said it doesn't happen that you can understand all of these principles in one lifetime, so it takes about 6 to 7 lifetimes to be able to grasp this knowledge. And that is just to understand. But actually, that doesn't give you the ability to read a chart. So after many lifetimes of studying it, then you still have to come back and have 60%, oh yeah, and all of the 140 years of knowing all the principles of Jyotish can only account to 40% of your reading. So when you're reading a chart, 140 years of knowledge can only account for 40% of doing the actual reading. So what happens to the next 60%? And the 60% comes from your jnana, which is the inner knowledge. And that comes from years and lifetimes of practice. And I'm like, okay. But he inspired me so much. And as I said, I didn't really want to leave Jyotisha because I was really passionate. And you know, when Penny was out in California, that was my main thing, you know, along with Ayurveda and other things I was doing. And I went up to him in one of the other courses much later, advanced courses, and I said, you know, there is this possibility for me to study Vedanta in India. He looks at me, he looks away for about 2 minutes, then comes back. you should do it. I'm like, how can he say that? I should do Vedanta and give up Jyotish. He's my Jyotish teacher. And he realized that my path is really here in Vedanta, and so with his blessings, I ended up coming to study with Dayanandaji, and I went to India for 3.5 years. At that point, I disappeared from the Jyotisha world for a long time, actually, and that's when I'm here. But we did have a great, great time studying with Hart, and I would say his influence in not only understanding Jyotish was significant, but he prepped me for Vedanta. Because without that prepping that I got from those years of studying with Hart, I don't think I would have assimilated Vedanta as well. Because coming into Vedanta just off the street without having a cultural background, of course I'm Indian, but I don't have Indian culture in my upbringing. And so it was completely foreign. And he sort of like, helped knead, like the way you knead dough, he helped knead me into accepting this Palestinian tradition. So I do owe him a great deal of credit for my journey, and I've actually thanked him a few times about him being the nimitta, or the being instrumental in my journey. And of course, Penny was part of that, because if she hadn't arranged a course here, I would not be here. Anyway, there are many great things to talk about Hart, but I'll let others say there are other people, and I think that's enough. I think I took too much time already.